Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Making It in Manhattan. This week's episode is part 2 of 13 things I've learned so far working in the fashion industry, so let's just dive in. So, picking it up where we left off last week, my next tip is to network. And as I mentioned last week, and I'm going to mention again, these tips, even if you don't work in the fashion industry, can apply to so many different industries and so many different careers. So, just keep that in mind. But with that being said, networking is the easiest way to just grow your career in the industry. Whether you're at an event or you're literally at a wedding or at a dinner with friends, like being your biggest advocate and not being afraid to speak about what you're doing, the business you're growing. I think one of the things that I learned when I quit my full-time job and went out on my own was like, you need to be ready in any room to be able to like give a little elevator pitch and to just like talk about yourself and to talk about what you're doing. And like, you never know who like you meet at one event could like lead to your next paid job or your next big opportunity. So like, don't be afraid to like elevator pitch yourself, network with everyone and anyone around you. And I think like the new age networking really is through social media. So like in the past when I would meet people, it'd be like, do you have a business card? But I think that like doesn't really exist that much anymore. Some people still have business cards, and honestly, I used to love my business cards. Like they were so cute. They were pink and like had a fun illustration on it. But nowadays, if I meet someone and they want to connect with me, my biggest thing is like, let's exchange Instagrams or let's exchange emails. Like that's the new found networking. And I think too, like you might be listening to this and you're like, well, Caroline, like I live in, I'm making this up, but like Pennsylvania, and I'm not in New York, and it's really hard for me to network. I don't really meet many people in like the industry I want to pursue. My biggest tip for you is to like use your social media resources. So like LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, like you can network across all of those platforms. So for example, if there's an editor you follow on Instagram that like you love and you really want to reach out to them and ask them for advice and just like network with them a bit, you can send a very professional DM. I talk about this in my book, like you can send somebody a DM, just make it very formal and very nice and kind of like an email sort of, but via DM because it's a surefire way. Everyone checks their Instagram like most of the time and like sees DMs and stuff. So sending an editor you admire, or maybe you see like somebody who works at like the PR person for Marc Jacobs, maybe you find them on Instagram and you send them a little DM. I always would say finish it with like, is there an email that's better to reach you at, so that you don't keep the conversation going over DM. Like you move it over to email to keep it a little bit more formal until you know each other better. And who knows, maybe they might just be like, oh, DM is fine, or oh, here's my cell, like let's just jump on a call. You never know. So like use your resources. When I started out, I did not have LinkedIn, I did not have Instagram, I did not have TikTok. So you guys have so many great resources. Use them. Network, and build your network. That is what will ultimately help you land like your next job or your next big opportunity. Speaking of networking, I just wanted to share a little story that I shared in a previous episode of Making It in Manhattan. And it was when I was in college and I was already networking, trying to get my foot in the door. And essentially, I networked with an upperclassman who I didn't know at all. I talk about this more in episode 6 of like how it all started. But essentially, this upperclassman at my school, she did an internship at Marie Claire magazine. And I went to her internship presentation and I was just so interested and like in awe and wanted to intern at a magazine so badly. But with that being said, I didn't know anybody that worked in magazines or in the industry at all. So I went out of my way. I'd never met this girl before, but I went up to her, introduced myself, and asked her if I could take her for coffee. Just that's a great way to network. Like, hey, could I take you to coffee, treat you to coffee, and pick your brain? Is what I always say. So at that coffee, I essentially asked her if I could, ask her for advice about how to reach out to Marie Claire for an internship. And she was very sweet. And she ended up giving me the email address for her internship coordinator at Marie Claire. So, and that's how I reached out. And I essentially, from that email, landed my internship at Marie Claire. So like you never know through networking who will like be generous enough to give you a contact or help you out, just give you some advice that can really like shape your entire career. So even if you're in college, like don't be afraid to network with upperclassmen, professors, ask people for advice. I think the best way to learn is to ask questions. My next tip is to always really, really do your research. And I touched about this a little bit in the last episode when I was talking about like applying for jobs for the Making It in Manhattan question of the week and how to stand out. But doing your research is so important. If you're applying for a job, you really want to make sure you know more than just like the surface level information about the company. If you're applying to a magazine, make sure you've read the last few issues and can like reference different sections of the magazine and maybe bring up like the cover star that they just shot with and the looks that they wore. Like make sure you can maybe talk about it in like a knowledgeable way and sounds like you really are interested. If you're applying to work with a certain designer, make sure you've done your research on their last few collections and can talk about the textures and different colors and the inspirations. Like make sure that you've done your research and can really talk about the company and show your interest, and that'll just ultimately, like we said, help you stand out in a sea full of candidates. Because if you get so far in your internship to like meet with the editor directly or to meet with the designer specifically and you're sitting in front of them and you can straight up reference a collection they've done, even if it's like years old, like it just shows how much you care and how dedicated you are, and that ultimately you'll then like apply that into your work and that you'll be very detail oriented and put in the time and work and that you just care. I think that's one of the biggest things in this industry is people just want to hire people A, who are nice, and B, who really care about the work they're doing and are there because their heart's in it and because they love it and because they want to be there. So do your research to show, honestly, that you care and that you want to be there and that you really, really want the job. My next tip is don't be afraid to follow up. People get busy. They get overwhelmed. Inboxes are crazy. When I worked at Teen Vogue, I could remember like clearing out my inbox the night before, waking up to over 100 emails. So like people get busy. People do actually miss emails. So don't be afraid to check in and send a follow-up when you haven't heard. If you've gone for an interview, sending a thank you email and a handwritten note is really, really nice. I don't know if that's dated or like people don't do that anymore. But when I first started out, I would always, if I interviewed with someone, I would always send them a thank you email and I'd also handwrite a little note and try to like get it in the mail the very next day. Just so that, say like you don't hear back from them and they start to forget about you or whatever it might be, you send them a handwritten note and they get it like a week later. They open it, they're like, oh yeah, that girl, oh, she was so nice, like whatever happened, like I should reach back out and reconnect. And then they'll go to your email, like search you and then see that you sent a thank you email, and then, you know, who knows where it could lead. I think a handwritten note's like also just like a good like little reminder to people that it'll come in a few days. It's handwritten. It shows that like you went the extra mile and you really care. So don't be afraid to follow up. When I was applying for my first job at Teen Vogue, I know I've talked about this in the past, but I went on my first interview and they were like, this went great. We'll email you later today to set up another interview for this week for you to come in and meet with the girls I was talking to first, like their boss. So I was like, great, sounds perfect, like so excited. So I sent my thank yous and everything and was like, let me know when you want me to come for the next interview. Heard nothing, just like radio silence. So then I start panicking. Did I do something wrong? Were they just saying that they were going to reach back out for the next interview to like, you know, say it? Like, did they not really mean it? So then like a whole week goes by and I'm just like absolutely distraught. And I had followed up once and I was like, didn't hear back. And I was like, I don't want to seem like desperate or like annoying. Like I just didn't want to annoy them, I think essentially was. And I was like, I also want to get the hint. Like if I'm not hearing back and they don't want to hire me, like I don't want to keep bothering them and following up. So I thought about it. I went back and forth and I told myself, okay, I'm going to send one last follow up and I'm just going to be like really nice about it. And like, hey, just wanted to check in again. Like I loved our last meeting. Really excited to meet your boss. let me know next steps. And I remember I was like, okay, this is my last follow-up. I'm not following up again after this because after that, like, they just don't want to hire me. So I hit send, sent that last follow-up, and like 2 minutes later got a response. And the response was, we've been so slammed. We're so sorry. We meant to write you back. Like, can you come in tomorrow? And I was like, I am there. See you there. And then I ended up getting the job and starting the next day. So with that being said, that one last follow-up, like, essentially got me the job and, like, got me into Teen Vogue, which essentially led to my entire career. So, like, don't be afraid to send that last follow-up. But then, as I said, if I didn't hear back after that last follow-up, don't keep incessantly following up. Like, let it I guess with that being said, like, I want to say, like, there's a time to let it go kind of thing, like, and to not keep following up, because then something else better is coming your way. Like, I say, like, 2 follow-ups, maybe 3, if it really seemed like they definitely wanted to meet with you or something like that. And then, like, let it go, move on to the next thing. But don't be afraid to send that follow-up, or to be, send that handwritten note, to be, on it, and to be in touch with them, maybe connect on LinkedIn, like, things like that, to just keep yourself fresh and in the interviewer's mind. My next tip is to always write things down. When I interned at Marie Claire, my boss had a joke with me that I would always have a notebook. Like, I always had a notebook attached to my hip. So, like, I guess not many interns would always do that, but for me personally, like, I always wanted to write things down because I never wanted to forget anything. Especially, like, the scene in Devil Wears Prada where she's like, I need you to pick up 10 to 12 skirts at Calvin Klein, and, like, call Mark, and, make sure we've got this confirmed, and blah, blah, blah. And, like, your boss at any point could just, like, come to you and start, like, spewing information at you, which makes sense. They have a lot on their mind. They're like, okay, I just need you to do this, 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 and this. And with that being said, you can't just, like, rely on your mind to remember everything. Like, we're all just humans. We all make mistakes, and I can't remember that much personally. Like, I can remember, like, 2 things, and then I'm like, what did they say? So with that being said, always write things down. I always had a notebook attached to my hip, and me and my boss would have, like, notebook meetings where she would literally, like, we had an intern conference room. She'd, like, call the conference room. She'd be like, can you come over to my desk with your notebook? And I'd go over to her desk, like, I had a little red notebook, and she'd be like, okay, I need you to do this, I need you to do this, and I'd sit there and I would literally handwrite everything down that she was telling me to do for the whole day. And it was just so helpful, because then as I went through the list, I would check off things. There's nothing that feels better than, like, checking something off, not mentally, like, physically, like, writing a check. And then I would never miss anything. Like, God forbid she told me to, like, book a car for her or for something, or, like, do an expense report or whatever it might be. Like, you didn't want to be that person that let anything fall through the cracks. So always write things down. And then with that being said, it's also good to write things down because you're remembering, like, you can reflect back on what you're doing. Like, oh, did I help her, like, pull all these pieces for this photo shoot for Julia Roberts? Did I get to help out on set for this photo shoot? And then you can add all of that to your resume down the road to be like, I did this, this, and this. And you can go through your notebook and reference back and remember things that you did. When I did both of my internships for school, I had to keep a journal every single day of, like, what I was doing at the internships, the tasks I was doing. It was, like, part of the assignment because I was doing the internships for school credit. But with that being said, I remember in the moment I'd be, like, so tired commuting home and be like, oh, I have to write my journal entry because, like, I don't want to forget it, essentially, was the point. Like, I would do them in the moment because I knew some girls who were like, oh, I just, like, at the end did them all and, like, faked it and was like, on July 5th I did this. And I was like, I don't want to do that. Like, I want to actually each day write down what I did. And I'm so thankful I wrote those journal entries because now I still have that notebook and I, like, go back and I read it and it's like, 2012 Carolina. And I'm like, today I got to go to pick up 5 garment bags at Valentino. And then I got back to the office and I sat down with my boss for an hour and, like, we went through this and I got to learn about this, and this brand. And then I printed pictures for her and made a mood board. Like, I just really, and then it like brings back the memories and I get to relive it and to, again, like feel like that little girl just starting out again and really excited. So I love writing things down. I think keeping a journal is like such a good way to just remember how far you've come and to reflect back on all the things you're doing. So yeah, write things down so you don't forget them, so you don't mess up, but then write things down so you can also reflect back on and remember and just see how far you've come and be proud of yourself and all of your accomplishments and add them to your resume, which will ultimately help you land a bigger and better job down the road. My next tip might seem obvious, but it's just to smile and always have a good attitude. As I talked about in the last episode in part 1, like sometimes you're going to be doing tasks that you just straight up do not want to do. But if you do them with a good attitude and you're happy and just happy to be there, that really goes such a long way. I can remember interning at Marie Claire and like it being like the hottest days of summer and going to have to pick up, garment bags from different designers and things like that, and I would literally be like dripping. Like I can remember like on my neck, like it's so hot, and I barely knew the subway system. Like I literally knew like 2 subway lines, so I would only take those and then I'd like walk the rest of the way. So I'd be like dehydrated, feeling like I'm gonna pass out. But like at the end of the day, I'd also just remind myself like, you're doing this for Marie Claire magazine. Like you're going you're walking 10 blocks to get this for Marie Claire magazine. Like keeping that in perspective and like being excited and happy to be there and just being someone that other people want to be around. Like I said in the earlier episodes, like with being humble, I feel like it's nice because a lot of these tips like all connect and all play back into each other, because at the end of the day, this is like these 13 tips are like essentially your ultimate guide to like building your brand and building your career and getting your foot in the door, and you're making it a Manhattan journey so you can just like get your foot in the door and do what you want to do. And with that being said, like smiling and being happy and doing it with a positive attitude, even on the days where you're not feeling your best, I feel like that really, really goes a long way. Like I used to love at Anna Sui when my boss would be like, can you go get coffee for everyone? I honestly loved it because I'd get to go outside, walk around a little bit, get the coffee. It was like an adventure to try to figure it all out. Where's the coffee shop? Like, and then when you get back and you do it all right, you're proud of yourself that you did it. And also when you have a positive attitude, I think then your boss knows they can come to you with more tasks because they can trust you and you're not going to like give them an attitude or anything like that. So just being that person that your boss feels like they can always rely on will help you get even more and bigger tasks. I remember being at Anna Sui, I was always like, yes, 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 anytime they needed anything. And then eventually they occasionally needed someone to like be a fit model. And they asked me to do it because I was the right size, and also just because I was like always like, sure, happy to do anything, like happy to be here. And with the fit model, I got to actually like have one-on-one time with the designer because she was coming to see how the garment fit me. Like, so I would just stand there and like smile really, really big. If you're watching the video, I'm like smiling, but I'd just be like, hi, and just be like so happy to be there. And yeah, it gave me FaceTime with the designer of the whole company, which I thought was like the coolest thing ever. And I was always so excited to like see her in person and see her at work. Like that is something that I always just found fascinating. But who knows, if I like wasn't always a yes person, or if I wasn't always positive and took every task in stride, who knows if my boss would have felt comfortable like trusting me with FaceTime with the designer. She might have been like, oh yeah, no, like this girl, we can't let her anywhere near the designer, like who knows what'll come out of her mouth or something like that. So I think just having a good positive attitude really goes such a long way. And then my last and final 13th tip to my 13 things so far working in the fashion industry is you don't always have to know someone. And for me, that's something that I just love talking about, because I know people are always like, what do your parents do? Like, do your parents work in fashion? Like, I'm so interested in like how you got started. But the reality is no one in my fashion, no one in my family works in fashion. Nobody at all. I just always loved fashion. I feel like it was born in me from the moment I like entered this world. I was meant to do this and I was meant to be on this journey. But with that being said, it's not like I woke up one day and was like, okay, like I want to work in the fashion industry, and my mom or dad just like picked up the phone, made a call, and like I got an internship. That did not happen. Sometimes I'm like, oh, that would have been so nice and easy. I wish it did. But with that being said, it made me so grateful and so thankful for every and any opportunity that I did get. My parents are not in creative fields. They have supported me endlessly in all of my adventures and all of my endeavors. And it was so exciting when I was doing my first internships in the industry. Every day I would come home from work and we'd sit around the dinner table and they'd be like, so what did you do today? And we'd like talk all about it and get to have those really special moments. But with that being said, yeah, like I remember, it's funny, my mom, she like works in a doctor's office, and I guess like one of the girls who works with her, like a friend of theirs, follows me. And I guess they were together and was like, oh, have you seen this girl's stuff? And the friend was like, oh, her mom works with me. And the person's initial question was, oh, is her mom so fabulous? Like, what does her mom do? My mom told me this story. And my mom was laughing. My mom's like, I'm like, yes, me and my mom spiritually and emotionally, like, we're both like big softies and we're so much alike. But like, my mom's not in fashion. Like, she's an absolutely stunning, beautiful woman, but she doesn't dress like me. She doesn't dress like colorfully like me. Like, she always says like she's inspired by me now to like dress and to go outside of her comfort zone and to wear colorful things. So with that being said, my whole point being is like, even if your parents or someone you know does not work in the fashion industry and you don't like have that connection or that foot in the door, that doesn't mean that it's impossible. I think this can be applied to like the entertainment industry as well. A lot of times it's like, oh, well, like if you're not born into it, like you can't make it, like you can't bring it into the industry. And that is not true. I think with hard work, dedication, being determined, having a good attitude, saying yes to new opportunities, being humble, like all of the things that I just touched on in this 2-part series, like that is what will ultimately help you get your foot in the door and grow your brand and grow your career. And then at the end of the day, you're just so much more thankful and appreciative of the opportunities when they come your way. I think if you were just born into it and your parents were like a high up executive somewhere, like that's great as well. And that's so amazing. And like, I'm jealous, but sometimes maybe you don't like appreciate the little things as much because it came to you a lot easier. Just a thought. Maybe you do. So no hate against anyone, but you know, for me, I feel like really, really grateful and thankful for like any opportunity. And I think that's why I talked back to Anna Sui and I was just like so happy to like make photocopies or get coffees or whatever it might be, because that was my very first internship in the industry and my very first opportunity at all in the industry. And I joked like on the first day, like when I stepped my foot in the door, I was like, this is my foot in and I'm never going out. Like this is my opportunity. This is my big break essentially. Like this is my entrance. This is how I'm going to meet anyone and network. Like when my first day of that internship, that's the first time I ever met people who even worked in the fashion industry. Like I didn't know anybody. So I was like, you're going to have to drag me out of there because this is where I'm meant to be. This is where I belong. And this is like, I feel like what I'm born to do. So don't feel discouraged if you don't know anybody, if your parents don't know anyone, your sisters, your siblings, whatever. You know absolutely no one in this industry. You know me. You're sitting here with me listening to this podcast, and I'm your big sister and your bestie, and I am going to tell you everything I know so that you can break in, because I wish that I had someone like me when I first started out telling me all the secrets and tips and tricks, because the way I figured it out was through trial and error and many mistakes and forgetting my resume at an interview with Vogue and like a lot of things I've regretted. So that's how I got here, was just through trial and error. And I just want to teach you guys everything that I've learned so that you can get your foot in the door and you can make it in Manhattan too. So for my making it in Manhattan tip of the week, the fashion industry can have this very like, you can't sit with us mentality, like you are not welcome here, like mean girl vibes sometimes. And like even when I was talking to that girl at my college who had interned at Marie Claire, and I was asking her for advice and like if she, recommended the internship, she told me that she had a terrible experience at that internship and she didn't like working there at all. She actually hated it and would not recommend it. But with that being said, I think any opportunity, job, project, whatever it might be that comes your way, you can always take it and make it for you. Make it fit to you, make it work for you. Like, it's something funny I remember in college, like coming back from my Marie Claire internship after I'd styled people for the VMAs. One of my professors said something to me that I thought was funny, and she was like, wherever you go, she's like, you make the smallest opportunity like into a big opportunity. She's like, you could be at an internship and like someone else could be there, but she's like, you will always like get the most out of it and like meet the people you need to meet and land the next opportunity from that internship or from that role. And that really stuck with me because I didn't think I was doing that, but I think it was something that I was just like so eager and excited to be there. And don't get me wrong, the fashion industry and beauty industry can sometimes be a very unwelcoming, unfriendly place. But I think wherever you go, as we said, if you like have a positive attitude and you're a good person, you can make that opportunity what you want to make it. Just because someone else had a terrible experience at a company, that doesn't mean you're going to have the same exact experience. You're going to make it what you make it. Like, you are going to take something and you can make this the best opportunity of your life, and you can make it open a million doors and lead you to your next role, your next job, your next career. Or you can sit there day in, day out and like be like, hey, this isn't for me. Like, I can't wait for it to be over and just like next chapter, close it up. So I think just with that being said, like, it is what you make of it, and the fashion industry will give you as much as you give it. Like, what you put into it, like how much you put yourself out there and how much you like pour your heart and soul into the work, like it'll give it to you back. And like, you'll grow your career however much, you know what I mean? Like, however much time and dedication and soul and spirit and love you put into it, like you'll get right back out of it, and you'll make any opportunity. Like that saying, it's like she leaves a little sparkle wherever she goes. Like, I feel like that can be you. No matter where you go, turning bad situations into good ones, and just always like putting your spin on something and leaving your stamp. Like, wherever you go, you leave a little bit of color. So now my making it in Manhattan question of the week is, there's a brand that I would really love to work/intern for, and I've tried to reach out a bunch of times but haven't gotten a yes. What do I do? So with that being said, I know hearing a no is the worst thing. I've gotten it. We've all been there, done that. But as I mentioned, no can just mean not right now. So sometimes you just got to like close the chapter on that company, no matter how badly you want to work for them. You need to like redirect and find a new goal or a new dream for the time being. Like, maybe you just need to like close the chapter on that for the time being. Go somewhere else, like figure it out, go to maybe like another company that maybe isn't like the best fit for you, isn't your dream job, but we all got to start somewhere. Get your foot in the door at that company, work really hard, gain more experience, build your portfolio, build your resume, give it some time, and in like a year or two, go back to that company that like you were dying to work for. You never know, like, just because they said no once, that, as I said, just means not right now. With a year or two of more experience under your belt. Also, maybe you go work for this, like, another company that you, like, never thought you'd want to work for, isn't your dream company. Maybe you end up loving it. Like, what is it? Rejection is, like, just misdirection or something like that. Like, just because this isn't happening, like, it's not happening for a reason. The universe is trying to push you in another direction, is trying to tell you, hey, there's something out there better for you. Like, this isn't it. Like, you don't need this. Like, go to the next thing. And I know it can be so hard to hear because, like, no matter how bad you want something, if the universe is saying, hey, there's something better out there for you, so, like, this is not going to happen, it's hard to like swallow that pill and to come to terms with being like, okay, this isn't meant to be, this isn't meant to happen, but now how can I like stay positive essentially and like not let it get me down, apply for another role, and hey, that other role could end up becoming your dream job. So I think just being positive and being open to new opportunities and new things. When the universe says no, say, okay, what's next? And then recircle back, work on your resume, take a step back, and move on. But I get it. When you get a no, it's really hard. Take a day, treat yourself to your favorite lunch, your favorite latte, do something that makes you feel good and fuzzy on the inside. And tomorrow's a new day. I have my bad days as well where I'm just like so down and hard on myself, and I just, maybe I can't even think about working at the moment. Like, that's okay. It's okay to give yourself grace and to have a day where you don't feel your best. Buckle up, take the time, have a good cry, and tomorrow's a new day. And that's what I always tell myself. So keep that in mind. So that is a wrap on this week's episode of Making It in Manhattan. Let me know which tip or trick was your absolute favorite. I had so much fun working on these and sharing them all with you. I really hope they help you in your job search as you are progressing and moving forward to the next big thing. Leave me a comment, a question on the Making It in Manhattan Instagram, and I will see you guys next week.